Hello, this is Dr. Sandy. There are two tools that are part of my neuroparenting program. The first tool is what I call See the Child, Free the Child, and I hope that you have had a chance to watch the coaching video where I show you exactly how to use that tool. This second tool is called Find the Right Label, and that's what I'll be coaching you on in this particular video. Now, I call this the cornerstone or the foundation of my neuroparenting program because when parents use these tools effectively, they're actually laying the neurological and emotional foundation for healing to take place in a child. So I highly recommend that parents use these two tools first if they want to play a significant role in the healing of their children's learning, behavior, and mood challenges. The traditional healthcare approach to any kind of learning or behavior problem is to look at the symptoms the child displays and then box these symptoms with a diagnostic label. Now, I do understand that for insurance purposes, you need the label, which then has a code, which means that the insurance will pay for the treatment of this diagnosis. And this is a great financial benefit to parents. I also understand that if a child shows certain symptoms, the school needs a diagnostic label so that they can provide the necessary resources and services a child will need with such a diagnostic label. So this is the paperwork reality that parents must cooperate with. I get that. However, there is another reality, and that is that there are huge dangers inherent in labeling children. I believe that labeling children can be psychologically, emotionally, physically, and mentally abusive. Labels stigmatize children, and these labels follow them wherever they go and whatever they do, and all the way through into their adulthood. So here are some of the dangers I'd like you to be aware of in labeling children. The label influences your perception of a child. Think about it. From the moment the healthcare practitioner utters that label and informs you of the diagnosis, from that very moment your perception of the child is clouded by the label. You look at your beloved child and then you see the label. You think about the child, and then you think about the label. And of course, from the moment the teacher hears a diagnosis, this influences the teacher's perception of the child and what the child is capable of achieving. Secondly, the label influences the child's perception of himself and can even become a part of his identity. I remember a 9-year-old boy whose name is David coming into my consulting room, and he was full of energy and full of personality, and he came up to me and put his hand out and said, "Hello, Dr. Sandy, I have ADHD and my name is David." I was so struck by this because what had David done? He had actually taken on the label of ADHD as his primary identity. Thirdly, the label can become an excuse for poor performance, for bad behavior, and low motivation. Too often I have seen how children use the label as a cop-out for why they cannot perform well. One teacher told me she was speechless when the child came up to her and said, "I can't learn today because my mommy ran out of my medication." I have heard parents use the label as an excuse for low grades and bad behavior. I have heard teachers and parents lower their expectations of a child to fit the label. Fourthly, the label becomes the child's self-fulfilling prophecy. Now you remember in the first video, See the Child, Free the Child, I spoke about the fact that every single child, including every one of us, has got what I refer to as the story of me. And I mentioned that the story of me of children who have got learning, behavior, or mood problems is not a happy story. It's a story in which They feel that they are not as good as other children. They're not the same as other children. Other children learn more easily than them. Other children are happier than them. And basically, it is not a story you would want your child to take into the world with them. Here's how the self-fulfilling prophecy actually works, neurologically speaking. This negative story of me is neurologically grooved into the child's brain. The label comes up so often in conversations with parents and teachers and family members. The child goes for various therapies because he has this particular label, and all of this focus on the label creates a deeply grooved neural pathway in the child's brain. And as the child travels along this neural pathway day after day, so the child actually makes this a self-fulfilling prophecy. And he becomes all the things that people say he is. He becomes the label. So now let's talk about how to avoid falling into this terrible trap. Well, there are two parts to this particular tool, which I've called Find the Right Label. And the first part is this: if you can make a choice not to let anyone place a diagnostic label on your child, then please do so. I have said earlier on in this video that I do understand that there are times that you are going to need this label for insurance or education or other purposes. And if this is the case, then go ahead and get the label. But once the paperwork is done, I highly recommend that you lose the label. What do I mean by that? Forget about the label. Don't think about the label. Certainly don't have conversations about the label with your spouse or with other members of the family, and respectfully but firmly ask the teacher never to have a conversation using this label in front of the child or with. In fact, I would explain to the teacher that you do not want the teacher to see the child as the label, that you are not seeing the child as the label. You want the teacher to see the child for who he or she truly is. So really what I'm saying is that you want to use the See Your Child, Free Your Child tool to see your child as whole and problem-free. And you want to encourage everyone else around the child to do the same. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that you go into denial. Of course you'll be making sure that your child gets all the therapies and supplements and correct diet that he needs to help him overcome the problems he grapples with. I'm simply saying that you refuse to fall into the trap of becoming attached to the diagnostic label, because what you will be doing is creating a neural pathway in your brain that says, my child who has ADHD, my child who has autism. And this will cause the child to create the same neural pathway. I am a child with autism, I'm a child with ADHD. You really don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is create a new neural pathway with more positive labels. You want to find the right labels. Now here's what I mean. The reality is that every single child, your child, has some unique talents and characteristics. So begin to identify these. These are the right labels. Labels such as artistic, musical, creative, mathematical, intuitive, good with animals, great cook, kind, caring, courageous person. So here's what you do. You buy a notebook, and on the front page of this notebook, using your child's name, of course, you write the story of David. And now, either as a single parent or as a couple, you spend some evenings together looking for the natural talents that your child has, looking for those very positive, special traits that your child has, and you write these into the notebook. Please note that it is very important that the natural talents and the characteristics and traits that you select must be visible. These must be evident. These must be traits and talents that your child does display. Then write the occasions when you see these talents and these traits in action. Now, once you've done that, watch your child, and whenever you see the talent or the trait show itself, tell the child. You say something like, I really like the way you helped your friend with his homework today. You are so thoughtful. Or, I can see you really have such great rhythm. I think you would be a great dancer. Or, I think you would be a great pianist. Or you may say something like, you have such a natural talent for cooking. Whatever you make tastes so delicious. By doing this, by speaking about the child's talents and traits, by focusing on these positive labels, you are now starting new neural pathways in the child's brain. And these new neural pathways will help him see himself as a talented, wonderful person. Having such a positive identity will change his story of me and build his self-esteem and self-confidence. So to summarize, the two parts of this tool called Find the Right Label are, first of all, if you can avoid the label, please do so. If you cannot, that's fine. Get the paperwork done and then forget about the label. Just forget about it and see your child as being label-less. The second part of this tool is for you to now begin to find the right label. And what that means is you begin to identify the unique talents and characteristics that make up this wonderful child of yours. And you now begin to tell the child about those characteristics. The conversations are about all those wonderful traits and talents, not about the label. You will be astonished at the difference that this will make to your child, but also to you and your family. So I'd like to tell you a story. It's a wonderful story that a teacher told me in one of my workshops. She said that this little boy came into her classroom, and he was new to her and new to the classroom, and after a few days she realized that he really was very autistic. So she said to him, you know, Justin, you're very autistic. And he said, yes, I know, everybody tells me I'm autistic. She said, no, you're autistic. He said, yes, teacher, I know I'm autistic. Well, obviously she explained the difference to him, and this little boy now is having his first show of all the wonderful art that he has created. He took ownership of the fact that he is artistic, not of the fact that he is autistic. Isn't that just beautiful? This tool is really such a positive and easy thing to do. Just find the right labels and you will change your child's life. And by the way, don't forget to let me know about the amazing things that happen to you and your family when you use this tool.